This is Ken Morrow, and this is my presentation on the Cameron Peak Fire, Larimer County, Colorado. The Cameron Peak Fire ranks in the top 10 wildfires in Colorado. Since 2012, there's been about 20 fires, but the Cameron Peak Fire is one of the bigger ones that occurred. Up in the right-hand corner, you see a Landsat 8 image that I processed about a week after the fire, where you can actually see a visible smoke stream or smoke trail coming from the ground. And the image below it is Landsat 8 that I color corrected using bands 7, 6, and 5. And if you actually were to zoom into the resolution on this image, you can actually see the hot spots or the actual fire spots along one of the ridge lines of the Cameron Peak Fire. I'm gonna put it out there right now. I've been working on different fires in Colorado for about almost 10 years now. So this is why a couple of these images that we're looking at initially are actually images that I analyzed and created when I was working on a burn area emergency response team for this fire. Nothing to do with this class, but I thought it would be a really interesting, just to show everyone what you can actually do when you know the color bands and you're really, really interested in looking at satellite imagery to see what's going on in a particular area. My question and thought was, what was the animal impact due to watershed damage? More specifically, the bear habitat affected by the Cameron Peak Fire and damage to the Cache La Poudre watershed. Um, you know, Bottom picture is a portion of the Cache La Poudre watershed out of Larimer County, Colorado, that was encompassing, the Arapahoe National Forest and the Roosevelt National Forest. The Cache La Poudre watershed provides water to the city of Fort Collins and the surrounding communities, so you always have to be worried about, surface contaminants. But, my thing was, what did it do to local wildlife? And I decided on, you know, going with the Bears. The two questions I mostly had about this was there extensive fire damage done to the bear habitat? And was there extensive fire damage done to the watershed near Red Feather Lakes where it is a critical bear habitat area? Um, the methods, like I said, the research that I was looking at was twofold. Um, Number one was, had to do a water delineation. We covered that in class briefly. Bottom picture, is a 10-meter dim of the area surrounding Red Feather Lakes. Um, red box was specifically the study area. Up on top, it was a Landsat 8 image, 2021 image of the Cameron Peak Fire. As you can see, a natural burn ratio was conducted. You know, everything with the values -1 is showing a really bad vegetation area or lack of vegetation. Everything in the lighter shades towards the +1, is showing that there is vegetation in that area. After I did the NBR or natural burn ratio, I took the watershed delineation and I draped the watershed over the burn scar. As you can see, the transparent red watershed shape is the Cache La Poudre watershed. And of course, up on there, you see the Landsat 8 image dated September 3rd, 2021. After doing that, and after using Landsat 8 imagery, I wanted to see where was the bear habitat in relation to hotspots that were being reported by Motus and VIIRS. So I used the Landsat 8 image of that area of the Red Fire Lakes image, um, clipped the bear habitat layer to that raster, and then using Motus and VIIRS data that I acquired from firms, I was actually able to plot, the hotspots that were being reported during that time, and look at the fact of where was the hotspots compared to the bear habitat, and with that, you're able to see that there are some hotspots being reported in the lower left, lower mid section of the bear habitat, which is the lighter shade of gray. Um, However, though, most of the hotspots being reported, initially were south of that area. So now, since we had the actual watershed delineated and placed over the Landsat 8 image, and we had the bear habitat as well placed over the Landsat 8 image of the burn zone from the Cameron Peak fire, you were able to see that when the fire was actually ongoing from August of 2020 to January of 2021, the Cache La Poudre watershed did sustain some significant damage. All along the watershed, you were seeing the Motus bleeps or hotspots that were being reported. You know, you see the whole eastern edge of that watershed that has been affected or damaged by the fire. You see the stream networks being damaged by, hotspots. You see a part in the middle of the watershed that has a black damaged area of it. But in retrospect, when you're looking at the bear habitat, you see right in the little middle of it, the tail end of the bear habitat, there was hotspots once again. And the watershed did extend into that lower part of the bear habitat. But if you're looking at how far the bear habitat actually projects to the north, and then the different other areas, the overall bear habitat actually survived pretty well. I mean, if you're looking at the southeast corner or southeast quadrant, you do see some more bear habitat that did report that there was hotspots being reported. So it's safe to say that that southeast quadrant there is probably severely damaged, or that bear habitat could even be, gone because it is in the burn zone, you know. So you can make the argument of it was either slightly affected, or you could say that whole section of bear habitat is gone. The watershed didn't fare too well. Overall, bear habitat, I felt survived really, really good. I mean, it's damaged, but it's not damaged to the point that it can't recover in a few years. Watershed is probably going to take several years to recover. From examining the last image like I was going over, you can say that there was significant watershed damage done. Yes, there were hot spots in bear habitat and there was some habitat lost, but it wasn't significant. Bottom line is the fire, it scarred the land. it affected the watershed, but out of all the possible scenarios, the actual bears in that area were the lucky ones. They were actually able to survive or escape that area or migrate into another area. But by looking at the imagery and researching it, the bears were the actual ones that made out the best. That was my presentation, on the camera peak and how it affected bear habitat and the Cache La Puja watershed.